Lean on Jesus, leaning on the everlasting arms.
The Night of the Hunter is a film that came out in 1955 that's directed by Charles Laughton and starring Robert Mitchum. So, The Night of the Hunter was last month's subscriber poll winner, and this is a film that I've heard quite a bit about for the past few years, and everybody that I've talked to, all of my followers on Letterboxd, and everybody in the Discord has given this film nothing but praise. And also, yeah, my hair is in a ponytail currently because it's just not camera presentable right now. It's a little oily, and I don't really want anybody to see me like that. But anyway, a really interesting thing about The Night of the Hunter is that it's directed by a famous actor, Charles Laughton, and this is actually the only film that he ever directed. And it's apparently because of the fact that The Night of the Hunter was quite divisive when it came out. It definitely had mixed reception, and I guess Charles Laughton took that personally, and he just never made a film ever again. Which really is a huge shame, because after watching The Night of the Hunter, I completely understand why people are now in love with this film. I mean, at the time, as I mentioned, didn't get the best reception, but now, I mean, it's hailed as one of the best films that came out in the 1950s. Some hail it as one of the best films ever. I believe in the Sight and Sound's Top 100 poll, it was in the top 20. But yeah, there was tons about this film that I admired and respected, especially for a film that came out in the 1950s. Really the main one being the fact that this film's main character and starring role from Robert Mitchum is a character that is obviously deeply immoral and just a straight up bad person. And not only does it star a character that is a terrible person, but he represents the Christian faith in a way that, you know, could have contributed to the fact that it didn't get the best reception at the time. Because writing your central character like this, taking up most of your screen time, is a lot more daring than I was expecting. Again, this is a character that basically interprets the Bible in a way that a lot of people would view as, you know, twisted and corrupt. But in my opinion, it's not that he's interpreting it truthfully. I wouldn't go that far. But he's basically interpreting the Bible in a way that kind of already fits with his own twisted morals. In the same sense that, you know, good people would interpret the Bible to match their own good morals. He's just an incredibly dark and interesting, and I can only imagine, incredibly controversial character for the time. And again, I just really respect films and filmmakers that aren't afraid to push people's boundaries and push cultural boundaries, and I feel like for the 1950s, this film did just that. But even aside from this film's exploration of religion, this film also takes a lot of time to explore childhood and just explore the mentality of children. And to me, it just expresses a lot of different things about children. I mean, it expresses one's strong loyalty that they have to their parents, but also on the contrary, one's desperate yearning to have a parent figure. And it also expresses how children are actually incredibly durable, mentally speaking. Because some of the kid characters in this film go through a decent level of trauma, and I think it expresses very well how children are just able to kind of put their brain on survival mode and just, you know, power through all the trauma and just do what's needed in order to survive and move on. I mean, they might pay for it later as an adult with crippling depression and anxiety, but, you know, for the moment, they do incredibly well powering through it. But it also explores how the issues and the problems of parents eventually passes down onto the kids. Because basically this film's central concept revolves around this boy's father putting him in a situation that is completely unfair to the children. I mean, you could argue that the father had the best intentions for what he was doing, but ultimately it wasn't fair at all to put his child through this horrible conflict that we see throughout the entire film, because the father is making his son grow up way too fast, so much so that by the end of the film it gets to the point where the child just has like this traumatic disassociation moment that I think is an excellent demonstration of the consequences of the parents' actions eventually take a huge psychological toll on the child. But another element of this film that may be my favorite element of the film overall is just the way it's shot, because there are so many different moments in this film that I think are framed and shot beautifully. Because I don't even think I can count on two hands how many shots in this film that I found breathtaking. And again, that's thanks to the framing, that's thanks to the lighting, thanks to the everything that it takes to make a gorgeous shot happen took place to make it happen. And it's also quite an atmospheric piece of filmmaking as well. And again, that is, a huge thanks to the cinematography, but also in moments thanks to the score. I mean, there are moments in this film where the score does kind of just sound like your classic, 50s Hollywood type movie. But there are other elements of this film where they incorporate sound and score along with the cinematography that, elevates the suspense and overall just establishes a great sense of an ominous atmosphere. And also, I feel like there are plenty of biblical elements to this film, allegorically speaking. Like for instance, if you take my wallpaper shot behind me, because this shot, in my opinion, comes off as a compelling biblical illusion. Because first you have the boy in the barn, which in this film is, quite heavily hinted that he's supposed to represent either a Moses or Christ-like figure. Then you have the image of the silhouette of Robert Mitchum's character on horseback in the background. That to me resembles very closely of a lot of images that I've seen of the three kings on camelback in the desert. So, I mean, obviously he's by himself here, but you can kind of view this entire shot as a kind of warped biblical illusion of the three kings trying to find Jesus. But when it comes to my criticisms of this film, I have quite a few nitpicks with it, but I really have only one big type of criticism to it, if you want to even call it a big criticism. But it's basically the fact that I feel like this film kind of blows its load in the second act. Like, it really feels like the second act of this film truly feels like a third act, and it's because it's just extremely climactic, and the level of suspense and intensity that you feel in the second act doesn't quite match what you feel in the third act. I mean, I don't mean to say that the third act is boring or dull. I think the third act is still a good act of film, but I guess just overall, by design, it kind of felt like it lost a little bit of steam. But really, that's the biggest criticism that I do have for it. Again, I do have a handful of nitpicks that I can't really get all into because they are very specific to the plot details. But I'll say, like, without really being too spoilery, there's this one scene where the kids are trying to hide from our main character, and the main character on horseback is singing this reoccurring biblical song, throughout the entire film. And in this scene, he's singing it very loudly from a far distance. And it just seems like if you're trying to hunt these kids down, why would you really be singing a song this loudly, therefore alerting them from a far distance that you're nearby? It works on an atmospheric level, but like on a logical level, I just don't know if it's there. But again, these things are a bit nitpicky. I just feel like I have to say these things in order for you guys to understand where I'm coming from. But yeah, overall, I think this is quite a compelling 50s film. I love the way that this film is shot. There's plenty of shots in this film that I found breathtaking. Thematically speaking, having a main character like this, I think is incredibly bold and daring, and I thought was actually explored quite well overall. So I'm going to give The Night of the Hunter a soft to solid 8 out of 10.
Leaning on the everlasting arms.
Yeah, The Night of the Hunter is definitely something that I'm highly considering buying during the July Criterion sale. And yeah, I'm extremely excited for the July Criterion Hall sale. It can't come fast enough. Martin Scorsese's After Hours, it was just released by Criterion that they're going to be releasing that in July. So, yeah, I'm extremely stoked for that. But yeah, that's all I got to say about The Night of the Hunter. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.